Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Um, Obviously, coming off a tough loss against Stanford at their place. Felt like we had every opportunity to win that game. Felt like in many respects we outplayed them, but give them credit. They made enough plays to win. So hats off to them. But I thought our guys battled. Thought Walker played really well. Did a lot of good things. So I was excited to see the offense that I thought I would see coming into the season. Um, so that was encouraging to see. Um, Wish we had a chance to make a couple plays there at the end on defense. Hopefully, get them off the field. Hopefully, we get better at doing that. Um, but we also recognize, we're 1-3. We're not where we want to be. But two of our losses are by combined 3 points. And so we also recognize in other losses to the preseason ranked #1 team. And so, even though as discouraging as it is to be 1-3, we also recognize that we're 2 plays away from being 3-1. But we start conference play this week, which we're really excited about. Getting ready to play in our conference. That's always the goal, to win the conference to start off with. And so, playing a really good New Mexico team coming in, and Coach Eck is a really good football coach. Did great things at Idaho. Now he's at New Mexico doing great things. And I think the thing that's impressive about that is Coach Mendenhall, I thought, did a really good job when he went there last year in 1 year and, turned the program around. But then they had a mass exodus when Coach Mendenhall left, and basically Coach Eck started, from ground zero again. And what he's been able to do has been pretty impressive and amazing. So, we know we're going to have our hands full with a really good team. They're able to bring their quarterback from Idaho, so that definitely helps. You got a guy that recognizes their offense, and so he's playing really well. He knows how everything operates. Pretty balanced football team. They can run the football, a lot of personnel groupings. They can throw the ball. Really sound and good on defense. And so they're 3-1 for a reason. Had a big win against the in-state rival last week against New Mexico State. Beat UCLA in the Rose Bowl, which is super impressive. And so, yeah, we're looking forward to this game. But the first conference game for our team in the season has got us rejuvenated. As tough as last week was, to lose it that late like it was, leading for most of the game. But, we're ready to press forward and get into conference play. And with that said, I'll open up for questions.
Aaron Johnson with the Mercury News, and you talked about it a little bit, but just how important is it to start conference play off with the win after a 1-3 start, especially with a 3-1 team coming in, to knock them down as well?
Yeah, it's in our mind, we're all 0-0 in the league, and that's the mindset. We're in league play, and so we're excited about that. Like I said, because we recognize our record isn't indicative of where we could be. And so, it'd be different if we're getting blown out every game and we're like, oh my gosh. And so we're a couple plays away, and we recognize that. And so we got to find a way to, minimize those mistakes and get better. And I thought we had 2 good days of practice on this short week. But, yeah, Aaron, it's really important that we get off to a fast start in the game, but also get off to a fast start in conference play.
Yeah, and you guys, the offense scored their first points, I believe, in the first drive for the first time this season. They got the field goal. So just what did you like from the fast start against Stanford?
That's the offense I thought we would see against Central Michigan. So I've been doing this a long time. There's 36 years of coaching, 17 years of being a head coach. And so, I can see things that, there's just stuff that, just from being in the profession. And I really thought we'd have an explosive offense like we saw last week. So it was kind of eye-opening our first game against Central Michigan. We didn't play very well. But I thought we've gotten better every game offensively against Texas, Idaho, and last week. And the cool thing about it, we still got a ton of room for improvement. There's some thoughts like, got to make some field goals. And if we do, we do have to make field goals. And if we make some field goals, we're probably 3-1. But maybe we're kicking too much field goals. We got to score some touchdowns when we get in the red zone. I thought we moved the ball really easily last week, from 20 to 20. We got to get in there. We got to find a way to get in the end zone. But Yeah, it was encouraging to see us with the fast start. But that offense that we saw last week is offense I saw all of spring ball, all of fall camp. And so I've seen us going on this trajectory. Walker's playing with a ton of confidence, and I like the way we're playing right now on offense.
Yeah, and you've also, every time you've spoken to us, you've stressed about the team not turning the ball over. And last week, Walker had no turnovers, and then Tama had the fumble, I believe, so only one turnover. And just what did you like from
No,
how the offense handled that?
we didn't have any turnovers. Yeah.
Okay, well, no turnovers then. But
Yeah. Yeah, there's one stat I watch is that one. So we didn't. So it was good not to have any turnovers. So I was happy about that. We probably should have had another one, and we had a substitution error, which we're definitely going to get rectified. That can't happen, and so we had a substitution penalty, which can't happen on defense. And we in that play we stripped the ball, so we should have two, and they end up scoring that drive. So, turnover margin, ball security has always been a big thing I've been preaching, and we were one of the worst in the country in the first three games. And last week we turned that around, and we gave ourselves a chance. We were a totally different team when we take care of the football. So I really believe if we take care of the ball, we're going to be a hard team to stop. We just got a lot of different weapons, a lot of different spots. You can't really focus on one person. And so, but we'll see. We'll see how things go.
Hey, Coach Ken, Niles Hall with the Spear. What's your biggest takeaway from looking at last week's film? And then coming into this week, what's the biggest point of emphasis?
Just we're so close. Just watching. There's so many plays here and there. If we'd have made this play, we'd have made that play. We got a couple of chances to get people off the field, and got to get people down on the ground and tackling. We had a chance to make a tackle for a 5-yard gain, and the breaking it and end up turning to a 60-yard gain. And that changed the momentum of the game because we had just taken a 12-point lead, and that kind of them coming down and being able to score just kind of they grabbed back the momentum that quickly. So that was a big play. We had a couple drop passes, and I thought our wide receivers played well. But they'll be the first to tell you they had Walker threw some great balls, and they got to find a way to come down with them. We catch a couple of those balls. It doesn't come down to the end. I mean, the last score would be irrelevant if we catch some of those balls. And so that's the takeaway is like we're oh so close. We just got to stay the course. And that's hard sometimes because like I said, 2 plays and we're 3-1 and you're feeling a lot better about yourself, but you're not. You're 1-3 because we didn't make those plays and we didn't get, coach well enough, play well enough to get those. But just helping our guys just stay the course. Just stay the course, take care of the ball, do what you're coached to do, and we feel like we'll have a chance.
How's it going, Coach Ken? Javen Takar from the Spear. How you doing today?
Good. How you doing?
Doing good. What's the mindset going into conference play after the first 4 games? Do you see it as kind of a fresh start?
Most definitely. And that's, I was going to try to look up our graphics, but that's kind of our mindset. It's a fresh start. We're 0-0 in the conference. So is New Mexico. So it's our first league game. We got them at home. Good football team, well coached, good players, and we're excited about this opportunity. And that's been our mindset. We've had some close, heartbreaking, heart-wrenching losses. I mean, last week was hard. That was a hard loss to take. The Central Michigan game was a hard loss. Those in the game, that takes it to the last second and you lose. Those are hard. But the hope and the new morning, the dawn of the new conference play is giving us hope. And like, what, we're 0-0. It's our first conference game, and so we're definitely looking forward to that. But it is a fresh start for us.
And how do you emphasize that importance to the guys on offense and defense?
Well, I don't know if you see our signs as you go out in the building. I mean, that's what we got up. We try to do it graphically so guys can see it visually. You talk about it in meetings. But it's been a big emphasis. Try to find a way to wipe away that loss. And it's easier said than done because I'm trying to get my players to kind of like, hey, we got to move on from the loss. But that was a hard loss. Like I said, that was hard to overcome. I mean, those are heart wrenching. To lose a game like that in the last second when you're up the whole time, and so the hope of a new season, conference play, helps us to put the hurt from last week's game and that's been our emphasis the last 2 days.
Nick Urias with KSJS. Coach, you guys been trying to get Leland Smith going here the past, prior to the Stanford game. Just how encouraging was it for him to have the offensive output that he did versus Stanford this past Saturday?
Oh, it's exciting for us because it allows people that they can't gang up on Danny. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of like pick your poison. And also Kyrie. I think Kyrie, so you got guys on both edges. Tooley's been another guy with Danny at slot. We feel like Matt Coleman will be back a little bit more healthy, 100%. Matt had a great camp and great spring ball. Got a little injured the first game, but we feel like he's back to 100%. But getting Leland going is huge because, like I said, it just opens things up. If there's guys that try to, if you try to take away one person, we have other people. And so that was exciting. He made some big plays. But it'll also be the first one to tell you that he had a chance to make a couple other big plays. And he will. And he's worked really hard the past couple of days to finish some catches. And I see nothing but many more great games and catches by Leland Smith.
How you doing, Coach? Nick Austin from Zeality. I know you mentioned, sort of like a new season almost with conference play ahead of you guys. But looking back to the Stanford game, what has the messaging been to the defense after, giving up a good amount of yards in the passing game?
Yeah, so the message was, our emphasis was to take away the run game. They're a big run team, and that mission was accomplished. Averaged like 1.6 per carry. We've been trying to do better on third down. We did a good job on third down, but as you know, we got crushed in the pass game, and we gave up too many chunk plays. And so, we got some pressure and some sacks early on. But we had some coverage busts, some discipline stuff with eyes in the secondary that we're getting rectified and fixed this week because New Mexico will do the same thing. They got a lot of different things, a lot of gadgets, a lot of personnel grouping, a lot of play action stuff. So you better have your eyes right against these guys, or they'll expose you. So the messaging was we got to continue to take away the run, which we will have to this week and do our best. But like Stanford, they can hurt you also in the pass game. So we got to be more disciplined in the back end. We had a chance to get Stanford in fourth and long on that last series. It's 3rd and 10, and then they converted. And then we had that 4th and 10, for when they got that big chunk play, that we got to find a way to make that play, and we will. We got to get better in our coverage. We came after them, so they knew that. They max protected, which is fine. And we got to find a way to, get that covered, and we will. And our guys are working on that to get better. And when we play coverage and don't come after people, we got to make sure that we do a good job in our zone, in our matchup stuff. And that's been the big emphasis these last couple of days.
And with the offense sort of getting going here past couple games, and obviously, you guys have expressed supreme confidence in Dennis, working through his struggles and all that. But does the philosophy on fourth down maybe shift a little bit, especially in short yardage fourth down situations late in games?
Well, we're going to make a change at kicker. We're going to go with Matthias. And so, Matthias is a kid that's a super talented kid. He's actually we got him through a tryout. He's like one of the tryout kids that came here. We had an open tryout when I first got here, and he was the guy who made the team. So it's pretty a cool story. Last year he made the team through a tryout. He wasn't recruited. He's got a strong leg and stuff, but he's a soccer player that learned how to kick the football. And so, like I said, I love Dennis. He's a great young man, but we've had too many misses. We've had too many, and so we got to get to a point where we're going to give Matthias a shot. He's got a strong leg. He does our kickoffs. Still polishing up his field goals and feel like he's gotten better. But under the circumstances, we're going to give him a shot and see what it is. We just told him today. We basically had the last 2 days kind of a kickoff. Those guys kind of went and feel like Matthias did good enough that want it. And so I kind of wanted him to know early. So I just told him like half an hour ago, then to practice. But I kind of did that on purpose because I want to put some pressure on him. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people that can kick when the stadium's empty. But being able to kick under duress is part of the deal. And um, he came up to me after practice and told me he's super excited, and I'm excited for Matthias too.
The run game just was seemed. I think you guys only had one attempt throughout the first half against Stanford, and then just what was your thoughts on the offensive attack? Because Walker obviously played amazing, but not getting the run game going.
Yeah, we're going. Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, we're getting chunk plays in the pass game, so we continue with that. But we also showed in the second half if we need to run the ball, we can. We'll see what New Mexico does if they try to play light boxes and back everybody up. I mean, you got to make people pay, which we've shown against Idaho and different people that we can do that. We kind of got caught off guard against Central Michigan in the first half a little bit. They played something that we weren't ready. We didn't think they would play. They kind of, when you have camp, when you got a month, you can kind of, do different things. And so they came with a different front than we expected and different coverage stuff than we expected. Then we adjusted, and then we were able to run the football against that. And so we'll just see if people try to play light boxes on us and take away the pass game. Texas. I mean, we were able to run the ball against Texas. Same thing. It's based on numbers. But we had it rolling in the pass game, so we kept going. But like I said, we'll see what New Mexico's, what their plan is, and we'll just attack it accordingly. They try to play light boxes, and obviously we got to hurt them in the run game, and we can't let them play with everybody backing up, and whatever 3 high safeties and stuff. And so we'll see how they play. The great thing is Craig's been doing this for decades. It's a system, and so it's not just a Rolodex of plays. Like you got, 900 pass plays. Let me try this one. We just attack what you're doing, and our kids see what you're doing, and we just attack what coverage you're playing. And so that's kind of the nature of offense, and it's the reason that Craig's here, because I wanted a pass game that was a system that attacked what you play. Kind of like I was an option guy. We attacked what you were playing, and whatever option we ran was based on what you were playing. And that's Craig's pass game. You know what I mean? We're going to attack how you're playing us. And we stayed with the pass because, we're pretty prolific in the first half.
And with Jabari Bates going down last game against Stanford, what's his availability looking like? Do you have any idea for the rest of the year?
Yeah, probably. I mean, he'll definitely, be out for this game. You know what I mean? It stinks for that young man. I mean, he was playing well. Went from third string to starter and came in the Texas game and played well. Obviously played lights out against Idaho. Was playing well against Stanford. I mean, he had some really nice runs, kind of kept us going in the run game. And, that hurts. I hurt for the kid because he's an awesome young man. And, we hope a speedy recovery for him. But, yeah, he's going to be out.
Will Dennis Lynch take over kickoff? I don't know if you said that already.
No, right now we'll still have, Matthias right now to still do that because he's been pretty good at that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Any more questions?
And it looks like
So with Jabari being out, what has been the messaging to Lamar Radcliffe? I know he hasn't played in the last 2 games. Sort of mentally, what has been the messaging to get him prepared?
really simple. Take care of the ball. Lamar is a Power 4 kid. I mean, he was going to a Power 4 school, had Power 4 offers. I mean, he's 6'2", 220, can run. He's strong. He's fast. But he wasn't taking care of football, and it hurt us, in the Texas game. So it's a really simple message. Take care of the football, which he has, and he's had really 2 really good days. So we're excited about Lamar. And I just was talking to him yesterday. He's like, said, it's not that I don't trust your ability and I don't trust you as a player. I just don't trust that you'll take care of the football. You got to prove to me that you take care of the ball before you get on the field. And he's done that. He's done it. Had really good practices. He's had the tip up. He's been super conscious of ball security. And so, expect to see Lamar. I mean, I'm really, really happy for him.
Just what did you feel about the defense's performance after kind of a strong start against Stanford, and then towards like the fourth quarter, it kind of let off the gas a little bit? Just what was your overall assessment?
Yeah, it was a tough loss. There were some really good
sequences in that game. I thought the third downs were really good overall and got back to being on track a little bit in that regard. But yeah, there was just a breakdown here, breakdown there, and the ball seemed to find that breakdown, and it kind of snowballed a little bit, and trying to get out of that, a couple of those drives late, and disappointing. The guys feel horrible about it, and it was just a downer because we had been played well up until that point, but it's a growing, it's a learning thing, and you try to point out the really positives that happened, and then try to just educate and fix those deficiencies that showed up during that sequence.
And then, what did you like from Jalen Thomas last game?
Yeah, I thought he did some really good things. He's productive. Again, he's still young. There's a lot of other things that he can get better at. New to position. He's learning how that works out there. Your life's on the line, so to speak, out there. Everyone can see, if you mess up, the whole world can see, as opposed to a D lineman not being in the right gap. No one sees it, And so he's got to learn how that works out there. But he's, again, getting better at it, learning the little nuances of the position. Like I said before, his future is bright.
And then how did you feel about the secondary's performance as a whole?
Yeah, like I said, there was some breakdowns here and there, and it was unfortunate. It seems like I said before, the ball seems to find where you're not right, because a lot of the time, 3/4 of the guys were on point, and then the one guy that's just a little bit off, that's where the ball went, and so again, it's a new group back there essentially. And so all these games, all these reps, you just want to keep building and learning from it and just keep moving forward. It's a new season now, starting conference. And so hopefully, we've continued to, in practice, work on those errors that we had in the game, and keep growing.
Down the stretch of, hey Coach, Niles Hall with the Spear. Down the stretch of last week's game, the defense looked progressively a little fatigued. Do you think that was in play, the time of possession?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're on the field a lot, that's going to wear you down as a defense. Now, on the flip side, we got to get off the field, to help that, so, possibly that could, be a part of it. But again, it's a really good learning experience. Unfortunately, had a chance to win the game, and we didn't get it done when we needed to, and so, again, those guys were, really crushed, but we got 24 hours to get over it. And, it doesn't count as 2 losses. It counts as 1, just as if we would have won it, it counts as 1 win. So we got to learn from it and keep moving forward.
And then from looking at this film, what was your biggest takeaway? And then what's the point of emphasis heading into the next game?
Just finishing the game. We gave up some chunk plays. We can't give up, big chunk plays. That was a thing that showed up. We were really good against the run, which was a big emphasis going into that last game, because they could run the ball really well. And we did a good job with that. I think it was just over 1 yard per carry on average, which is outstanding. And but we just got to shore up the big chunk plays and eliminate some of those.
Javen Takar from the Spear here. How you doing today, Coach?
Doing great, thank you.
How would you sum up the past 4 games defensively?
A mixed bag, well on third downs. Has some, a couple games versus the run that were not to where we wanted, but then got better at that. Did some good things in the throw game early on, but yet, recently a couple things showed up. So again, it's each game is its own season per se, and you just get, every situation is a little different, who you're playing, where you're at, and those type of things. But I think overall, we are trending in the right direction. I see a lot of positives that don't get seen in the stat book, and I think they're a really close-knit group, and they're eager to get back out and play another game. And so that's what you want. And we have good leadership in that regard. So, they're, like I said, you got 24 hours to sulk or feel good about it, and then you got to move on.
For sure. And then is there somebody that you're excited to see out there, or excited to see kind of step up going into conference play?
I don't know if there's one particular guy. I think everybody we want to see just keep improving. Up front, it always starts up there and with those guys and shutting down the run game and getting to the quarterback, and it just kind of progresses from there to the back end. But I just want to see each guy, whatever they're need to work on, whatever areas that they need to improve on, to do that during the practice sessions, and then the things that they're doing well, continue that. And so that's the challenge moving forward.
Nick Urias with KSJS. Coach, I'm just curious on your thoughts on this New Mexico team, offensively, because they got like this three-headed snake at running back, but they can also, their quarterback is more than capable of making plays to their skill position as well through the air. Just what's the healthy balance as far as keeping the ground attack in check while at the same time not letting the quarterback beat you with his arm?
Yeah, they're extremely balanced. I mean, they went to UCLA and beat them 35-10 and had 300 yards rushing, and then the following week, last week, they had 350 yards passing. You know what I mean? So I mean, they are really potent on offense. They're playing at a high level. They're really confident in what they're doing. You can see that on film, and so we'll have our hands full for sure. I think the guys are, like I said, eager just to get back out there and play again. And I think it helps us having a game earlier in the week to kind of get back out and play, and so not keep thinking about the one that just got away, so, but we'll have our hands full. They're, the quarterback's playing at a, high efficiency. I think he threw 5 touchdowns and 0 interceptions last game. And, their 3 backs that they have are, explosive, really explosive. And they have a tight end that's their leading receiver, extremely athletic guy. So they have a lot of weapons, and we got to be on point. Yeah.
Then you mentioned holding Stanford to just around 1 yard per carry. Just what did you see working well from the D line, the linebackers, to kind of like?
Yeah, that was going into that game, we worked a ton on the run game and our fits in the run game, and just having that great knockback up front. And those guys rose to the challenge. I mean, they really stepped up, and they were, took that that task on, and during the week, and they performed when we needed it. And so again, made them a little bit more one-dimensional. Now we got to defend that last dimension that they had in the throw game. So, I was really pleased with those guys. And it starts with Nafa up front. I mean, he was just unbelievable, and Nell Latu played really well as well in the linebacker course. So, but building blocks, okay, we learned from that, and you just got to keep replicating that moving forward.
With 1 interception on the season, is there anything that you think you guys can do to create more turnovers?
I always say turnovers, are kind of, you just got to, things, turnovers are one of those things that they come in bunches generally, or they don't at all. You know what I mean? It's just one of those deals. So we work on it all the time, like we've done in the past. We've been really good in getting turnovers, creating turnovers the last few years. We work on those same drills every day in practice, and they'll come. We just keep playing hard and getting our hands on the ball, and those things will happen. But yeah, turnovers are big. Interceptions, as long as we get it. So we've got some fumble recoveries. As long as we can get it back to our offense, that's what really matters.
Aaron Johnson with the Mercury News, and just coming into the game, or at least in the first half, there was only 1 rushing attempt, and then it was just all passes from there.
Right.
Just, at what point in the game did you realize that you were just gonna air it out completely?
I didn't even know we didn't have a 1 rushing attempt until whenever or when it was. I think it was towards the middle ending of the second quarter, and I looked up at that ribbon that has the stats and the score of the game and everything. I'm like, oh wow, did we run the ball yet? I couldn't tell you. It was just Walker was feeling it. There was a lot of things that the defense was doing that was somewhat taking away some of the run and giving us the ability to throw the football. And, we saw red and was ready to attack those guys. And so, yeah, I couldn't tell you when or how, but that's when I noticed when I looked up at that ribbon. I was like, oh, wow, did we run the football yet? I wasn't sure.
And then just what did you think of Walker Uget's performance overall?
Yeah, I thought he played well. He gave us a chance to win. He made good decisions. He kept the ball out of harm's way probably all but 1 or 2 times. It got kind of close. I thought there was probably a few critical moments where He could have taken advantage of one or two things, but for the most part, I thought he did a great job of giving us the ability to win the football game and putting us in that position. He was clear-eyed out there, and he was seeing what the defense was doing, and he was in the zone. So it was great to see maneuvering through the pocket. And when I knew that he was playing the way that we knew he could play, is when he took off and scrambled a few times, and got some tough yards and tried to get some first downs with his legs. So I was really happy with his performance. We can always get better though. There's moments in the game, like I said, that I thought he could have gone out there and taken a different approach to a play, but for the most part, he did what we asked him to do.
And then with Leland, Scudero, and Scholes all getting over 100 yards in the game, just what did you like from them, and what was that like for you to see them put up such big numbers like that?
I thought it was great because, for the first 3 games, we had a lot of things that was we were trying to, I would say, manufacture things to get explosive plays, and I thought we were able to do that. But this game, it was just within the flow. The play calls, being able to distribute the football the way it was supposed to be distributed rather than forcing it to certain guys. And, being able to put Leland in the slot a few times, we were able to get him some mismatches and get him the ball in certain situations. And I thought just those guys were able to make big plays, Kyrie especially. Kyrie's come a long way from last year. He understands his plays. Is he perfect? By no means he's not perfect yet, but he's playing fast and really happy with where he's at. Danny Scudero continues to do some things. I think there's just too many drops out there. I'd like to see less drops, and I think if that's the case, I think we run away with that game. But it is what it is, and these guys are all new. This is the first time they're really being able to play a lot, and so there's some growing pains. But at the same time, too, though, having 3 guys go over 100 yards, like I didn't even realize that till after the game. I didn't realize how much we threw for. I didn't realize all those things till after the game, and it was still heartbreaking. But you get home, you're like, wow, okay, 3 guys went over 100. You throw for nearly 500 yards, and the way I look at it, probably should have thrown for 600. Probably should have had 700 yards and 50 points out there. So there's a lot of things that we left on the field, and we got to just be more consistent and finish in the red zone and score touchdowns.
Hey, Coach, Nans with the Spear. You guys had 500 yards of offense. Statistically, that's a great game. Mm-hmm. And then looking at the film, where do you guys think you can improve?
Yeah, probably just, like I said, catching the football 100%. When we run the football, clean up the penalties. I think some of those penalties in critical situations, closing out the game or in the red zone or 3rd and 5 turns into the 3rd and 10 with a false start. Holding calls put you behind the sticks when you're trying to milk the clock. And I thought towards, in that 3rd and 4th quarter, we were able to run the football well and get explosive runs, or not explosive runs, but efficient runs, get first downs. And so I think it's just, like I said, be more consistent, cleaning up the penalties, catching the football, and just being on the same page 100% of the time. Because you look back, I told the offense this morning, you go back a week and, you take out the sack or whatever, we rush for 200 yards, against Idaho. And then we come this week and we throw for whatever we throw for. And so I think it shows that we have the ability to be a complete football team and a complete offense by running the football when we need to and throwing the football when we need to win. We just got to score more points and finish in the end zone.
What have you seen from New Mexico defense?
They got a lot of stuff. They got 3 safety looks. They got odd fronts. They go to even fronts. They go to overload fronts. They play hard. They got man principles. They got zone principles. They got all different, they're bringing safeties down from out the sky. Sometimes I'm like, are they playing with 12 guys out there? And so those guys do a great job. Jason Eck, I've known him for a long time, and he's always going to get his defense, and really the whole team, they play hard, and they're going to be awesome on that respect. And then you also got Stanley Franks I worked with at Washington State. He's a defensive back guy, and he'll have an idea of what we do. And then also Loney, he's the D-line coach. I worked with him at Utah Tech, and he's a fiery competitor, and all those guys are really smart ball coaches. They know how to get their guys ready to play a game, and they're familiar with the offense of what we do. So it's going to be a good challenge for us.
Javen Takar from the Spear. How are you doing today, Coach?
How you doing?
I'm doing good. What's your mindset going into conference play? Do you see it as a fresh start with the first few weeks not starting, kind of how you would expect?
Yeah, absolutely. There's always a season within the season, and your goal is to win the conference. You have the goals of going to the college football playoffs. You have the goals of, doing those special things. But when it's all said and done, when you're playing like opponents and you're playing within your conference, that's the number one goal, is to win the conference. So it is a little bit of a new season for us. The first 4 games it puts us going this way, offensively. So we just got to continue that trend and just go, like Coach said today, just go 1-0 in conference. That's the main thing, and get that win versus New Mexico.
And what do you think is going to be the key for the offense to be able to win, not just this game, but the Mountain West?
Yeah, consistency, retention of information, and consistency.
Nicky Rice with KSJS. Coach, when the first couple plays that you were dialing up in the first quarter versus Stanford, easy completions, it seemed like there for Walker. Was that kind of like the intent, like just to kind of, get the kinks out of the arm? I know he's kind of been off to a slow start, but was that kind of, a point of emphasis early on in the game?
A little bit. I think we did have some things going into the game that we wanted to get the ball out quick and get easy completions for him. But at the same time, too, though, we told Walker and we told the offense, we're going to go attack from the get-go. And if they give us certain looks, we're going to go attack them from the get-go. And I think it was the third play of the game, we got the look that we wanted to, and we were able to hit, who was it? Was Jackson, on that little over route or whatnot. So it's really just, I think we're 4 games in now, and the receivers are kind of meshing with Walker. He's starting to know where those guys are going to be. Our offensive line, are starting to mesh together. The running backs are starting to understand, their role and how explosive we can be. So I think it's just one of those things. But to start off the game, we were thinking about just some easy completions for them, but you can't help yourself. After like the second play, I'm like, we got to go push the ball down the field already. So, and it wasn't forced. It was, okay, they're playing this coverage. Let's go attack it.
How you doing, Coach? Nick with Seality. There was no sacks given up in the Stanford game. Could you really speak to the offensive line play, considering especially the seeming rotation at the guard position?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing John Estes has been able to do is create that rotation and keep the guys fresh. We have a good 7-man rotation, and it allows Seti to play fast and play all game long. Same thing. I know Joe played something like 72 plays, but Huddy being able to go in there keeps them fresh. Tyler is like our Swiss Army knife. We can put him anywhere. We can put him at guard, tackle, right side, left side. It doesn't matter. That allows Sione to be fresh, and Daniel Maleni. And then Nate Hale has, this time last year, we didn't even think Nate would be able to play this upcoming season. And the transformation of his mindset, his body, has been wonderful, and he's been able to stay out there and be that rock for us on the right tackle. But I just think John has done a wonderful job of getting those guys all up to speed, be able to play together, and it's been really nice to see all the offensive line just kind of grow together and create that chemistry, and Walker being able to maneuver through the pocket and not get spooked and just go ahead and trust his O-line, because that's the biggest thing, is you got to trust the O-line, and the O-line's got to trust the quarterback that they're going to be on the same page and get the ball out when they need to. And there's sometimes we're going to ask the O-line that, hey, we want to get the ball out in 2.31 seconds, but guess what? This one's probably going to be about 3.5. You got to hold up for us a little bit, buddy. You know what I mean? So it's been really good for us. It's been fun to watch those guys grow.
And with Jabari being out, what has been the sort of conversation with Lamar to sort of get him going mentally and prepared? I know Coach mentioned, ball security being number one for him, and now it wasn't necessarily because of his play that got him benched. It was just ball security. What has been the messaging from you and the offense in general? Just
reemphasizing what Coach says: value the football. Number one is taking care of the football. Don't put it in harm's way. We say this all the time. Football is so important. They named the game after it, so you got to take care of it. And for us and Lamar, he's talented. He's a big, strong specimen. When we hand the ball off to him and he hits people, they feel it. He goes forward, and he's a guy that we looked at the beginning of the season as a starter for us. So for him to kind of do and go through what he's gone through, he's had 2 great practices in a row. So I'm really excited to see what he's able to do. But there's no doubt we're going to miss Jabari. He was electric for us, and he really got us going. He was the start of the last 7 quarters that we've been able to play pretty well. And I feel for him because he's worked so hard in the off season, and he played a little bit last year, and he battles through and he keeps grinding. He's a guy that doesn't quit, and he worked his way back and he stayed patient. And when his time came, he shined. And to see him go out and have this kind of injury, it really, really, it hurts. It hurts to see him like this, but he'll battle back.
When Coach Ken has, spoken at the post-game press conference, he's really emphasized, just the ball security.
Mm-hmm.
And, you guys had no turnovers last week. And then what do you think went into that? Was it more of good decision-making from Egat or just the guys holding on to the ball a little bit better?
I think it was both. The point of emphasis that we've always had, but really stressing it through practices, whether it's just, during a team period of just tip up and 2 on contact. We've done drills. We created drills in the offseason. We continue on through the season with the receivers of catching and seeing 2 split 2 and getting 2 on contact. And I think it's really been, Walker making good decisions. Again, not putting the ball in harm's way and understanding, just get the ball out of your hands just like he did last year. But he has a better understanding of what he's trying to do this year. So if he continues on the same track, we'd be able to limit the turnovers. And I think we pulled up and we talked about it as an offensive unit on, I think it was Sunday. We said, you look at the drives, right? When we stalled in the last 3 or 4 games is when we turned the ball over. If we don't turn the ball over, we move down the field pretty easily. It's very simple. But there's that fine line. You want to put a point of emphasis. You want to make sure the guys understand it, but you don't want to make it bigger than what it is, because these guys have been playing the game for such a long time. It's not like if they turn the ball over all the time, they wouldn't be in college playing for us right now. So just building the confidence back.
And then with, you've mentioned that your offense has like a lot of option routes decisions being made on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
And, that I've heard talking to players, you, Billy Ray, even just that it takes like a big steep learning curve to kind of grasp it. And like in the age of like NIL and the transfer portal, like, do you feel like that becomes a little more difficult to get guys gelling right away? Because you mentioned you just saw that you feel like the wide receivers in Egat are starting to gel as of right now.
100%. It's easy when you just run dig routes and you run 9 routes and you tell them you got to curl here or you can curl or go, but the things that we ask these guys to do require a lot of time and hard work. And there's nothing like time to get timing. It doesn't just happen overnight, and it certainly doesn't happen in 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 months. It takes a long time. I was just talking to my buddy last night. I said, it's weird. There is no such thing as year 2 anymore. You look at back in the past with this offense or variations of this style of offense, and it's like, man, when you get to year 2 and year 3, you're cooking. There's no such thing as year 2 anymore. And it sucks, but it's the reality. And so the way that we do things in the off season and how we teach things and how much time we spend with the guys, it's critical, but we spent so much time with the guys in the off season, and still it takes a few games. So hopefully we can just continue to trend up.
Sort of speaking directly to that, your response just now, does that sort of make having Walker back here for a second year that much more impactful, considering you just said, there really is no second year. So having your, the key of your offense, the quarterback, back for year 2, how does that sort of translate?
That absolutely helps 100%, but you can still see the quarterback comes back. You still got new receivers. It still takes him time to get on the same page with those guys. But it would be a whole nother ball game, right? If you got the quarterback that's brand new, and then you got, receivers that are brand new, and then you got all these. It's funny you say that because we live in the present, but we plan for the future. It's in the back of my mind, what's next year gonna look like? When you're a coach, you always you're recruiting for next year, you're coaching for this year. You always gotta have plans. You gotta have all these. You gotta see into the future, so to speak. And so. It's one of those things, but at the same time too, though, if we can put up numbers and we can get wins, then we'll continue to attract guys who want to play in system, get really good numbers, and then figure it out after that. But for us, it's the learning curve is steep, and it does take some time, but it does definitely help having Walker coming back and being able to be the extra coach in the field. It settles everybody down, And when your quarterback is at the top and understands everything, and everybody's got to get pulled to that, it's a lot easier versus having, like the quarterback's like the head of your body. If everything else is up here, but your head is still like, doesn't matter what you do and what guys you have. You could have, Randy Moss out there and you ain't going to be throwing for many yards, or you're not going to have a good offense if the quarterback doesn't know what he's doing. So having Walker has been awesome, and it's great that he's playing the way that he is right now.